Good afternoon, children. Welcome to your I Learn English language class. Today we are going to do chapter 8, which is clauses. We are going to begin with chapter 8, clauses. So you have already done phrases in class 7 and clauses also a little bit you had done in class 7, but we'll be doing it in detail now in class 8. So what is a clause? A clause is a group of words. A sentence is also a group of words, and a clause is also a group of words which has a subject and a finite verb, which conveys some sense and which may or may not stand alone as a sentence. So we'll go through the definition again very slowly. A clause is what? It is a group of words. Like a sentence, a clause is also a group of words, and it has a subject and it has a finite verb also. You have done non-finite verbs, so you know what are finite verbs. So it has a subject and a verb, and it is a group of words. Then why is it not a sentence? Why is it a clause? Let us see. Which conveys some sense. That means it may not convey complete sense. Okay, a sentence is a group of words which conveys complete sense, but a clause may or may not convey complete sense. It may convey complete sense also, and it may convey some sense also, and which may or may not stand alone. This means that it has, if it is making complete sense, it has a subject and a finite verb, and it is making complete sense, then that clause can stand alone. If you remember, you have done independent clause. I have told you about independent clause when we were doing conjunctions. So a clause which has a subject, which has a finite verb, and which conveys some sense, and which can stand alone, which may or may not stand alone. So a clause may stand alone and a clause may not stand alone. Then also it will remain a clause. Okay. So this is the definition. You have to remember the key words. It is a group of words. It has a subject. It has a finite verb. Even if it does not convey complete sense, it will convey some sense, and it may or may not be capable of standing alone as a sentence. Now let us take an example. Let us read this sentence. The girl who is wearing the red dress is an astronaut. So this sentence is also a group of words. It has a subject, the girl. It has a verb, is wearing, and it is conveying complete sense to me. And it is a sentence as well as a clause. Now let us divide this sentence. Let us take this sentence in parts. Okay. So if I take this part, the girl, which is the subject, and this part is an astronaut. So this part of the sentence, the girl is an astronaut, is a clause. It has a subject, the girl. It has a verb, is, and it is making complete sense. In itself, it is making complete sense. The girl is an astronaut. And it can stand alone as a sentence. It does not need anything else. It does not depend on anything else to complete its meaning. So therefore, this part of the sentence, the girl is an astronaut, which is a part of this sentence, the girl who is wearing the red dress is an astronaut, has a subject, it has a verb, it makes complete sense, and it can stand alone as a sentence, and therefore it is a clause. It is not only a sentence but also a clause because it is part of this sentence. Now, let us look at the remaining part of this sentence. So the girl is an astronaut. We have already decided that it is a clause. Now the remaining part of this sentence is who is wearing the red dress. So let us see if it fulfills the condition of a clause. Who is wearing the red dress? Now in this part of the sentence, who is the subject, is wearing is the verb. So it has a subject and a verb. Who is wearing the red dress conveys some sense, although not complete sense. It is not making any complete sense, but it is conveying some thought, some sense. So we know that a clause is a group of words which has a subject, which has a finite verb, and which conveys some sense. That was the definition. So it conveys some sense, although it may not convey complete sense. But it cannot stand alone as a complete sentence. We know that who is wearing the red dress is not a complete sentence. But in the definition of clauses, I told you that it may or may not, a clause may or may not stand alone. Okay, so therefore this is also a clause because it satisfies all the conditions of the definition of clause. It has a subject, which is who, is wearing is the verb, it conveys some sense, not complete sense, and it cannot stand alone as a complete sentence. It needs another part to complete its meaning. It needs another clause to complete its meaning. Okay, so this was a sentence which had two clauses. Let us look at the two clauses now. The girl is an astronaut was one clause. Clause which could stand alone as a sentence. This clause could stand alone as a sentence. Who is wearing a red dress was another clause which cannot stand alone as a sentence. It cannot stand alone as a sentence. It needs something to complete its meaning. So this, with this example, it must be clear that what is a clause. It should fulfill these conditions. It should have a subject. It should have a verb. It may or may not convey a complete thought, and it may or may not stand alone as a sentence. So that is a clause. Now, if you look at this sentence carefully, you will see that this clause, this part of the sentence, which is a clause, who is wearing the red dress, is describing the girl. This is describing the girl. Okay, so who is wearing the red dress is functioning like an adjective also. So this adjective clause we will do later on, but for your reference, I am telling you this, that the girl who is wearing the red dress, who is wearing the red dress is an adjective clause since it is describing the girl here. Okay. We can also say the girl in the red dress, but who is wearing the red dress is a clause which is describing the girl. Now let us revise again what is a clause. A clause is a group of words that has a subject and a finite verb. It may or may not stand alone to form a complete sentence. As I told you, it may form a complete sentence, it may not be able to stand alone as a sentence, or to convey a complete thought. That is, it may convey a complete thought or it may not convey a complete thought. And the third point, which will be study later, but which you should know about a clause, is that a clause is a group of words that acts as a part of speech. You know what are parts of speech? So a clause can act as a noun, they can act as an adjective, or they can act as an adverb. What is the meaning of acting as a noun, an adjective, or an adverb? It means that a clause can perform the function of a noun, it can perform the function of an adjective, or it can perform the function of an adverb. Okay? And it can convey some sense, not complete sense. So this is a recap of what a clause is. So now let us see what are the types of clauses. We have already discussed certain clauses. We have talked about them when we were doing conjunction. So you must be familiar with these names. There are three kinds of clauses: principal clause, subordinate clause, and coordinate clauses. Okay. So these are the three main kinds of clauses: principal, subordinate, and coordinate clauses. So let us look at these clauses individually. Principal clauses. A principal clause has a finite verb. Every clause has a finite verb. They have to. With a subject, every clause has to have a subject and conveys complete sense. So a principal clause is a clause which has a verb, which has a subject, and which conveys complete sense. It has two. And it can stand on its own as a sentence. So a principal clause is that clause which not only has a subject and a verb, but it conveys a complete meaning, complete sense, complete thought, and it can stand on its own. Therefore, the principal clause is also called the main clause or an independent clause in a sentence. Just like the previous example I gave you, the girl is an astronaut was capable of standing on its own. It was a main clause. Okay, it was an independent clause. It did not require any other clause to complete its meaning. So such a clause is called a principal clause, which has a verb and a subject, which conveys a complete sense and which is capable of standing alone as a sentence. Now let us look at this example. I enjoy watching movies. I enjoy watching movies. So in this sentence, I is the subject, enjoy watching is the verb, and this sentence makes complete sense. This is making complete sense to me, and it is capable of standing on its own as a sentence. Therefore, this is an independent clause. So what was the requirement of a principal clause or a main clause or an independent clause? That it should have a subject, it should have a verb, it should have make complete sense, and it should stand on its own. So therefore, you see that all sentences, most sentences, most simple sentences will be independent clauses. Okay, so this is an independent clause or a main clause or a principal clause. Now let us move on to coordinate clause. Coordinate clauses you have done when we were discussing coordinating conjunctions. So independent clauses which are joined by a coordinating conjunction are called coordinating clauses. So I had taught you coordinating conjunctions, fanboys conjunctions. If you remember, coordinating conjunctions are the fanboys conjunctions. And I had told you when we were doing conjunctions, coordinating conjunctions, that a coordinating conjunction joins two clauses which are independent. With both the clauses in such a sentence are capable of standing alone, standing on their own. Both are of equal rank. Both have equal status in the sentence. And when we join them using a coordinating conjunction or a fanboys conjunction, both the parts are called coordinating clauses. Each clause in such a sentence can stand on its own. They are independent. Both the parts are independent, and when we join them together with a coordinating conjunction, they become coordinating clauses. Okay, let's see an example. I like watching movies, but my sister likes shopping. So this sentence has two clauses. I like watching movies and my sister likes shopping. Don't you think both these clauses have a subject I, verb like? This has a subject my sister. This has a verb likes. This also makes complete sense. This sentence, my sister likes shopping, also makes complete sense. I like watching movies also makes complete sense. Both of them are capable of standing alone as a sentence. Both these clauses are independent clauses. But when we join them with a coordinating conjunction, which is but in this case, these two clauses are called coordinating clauses. Both the clauses are making complete sense and can stand on their own. They are both independent clauses or main clauses or principal clauses. But when they are joined using a conjunction, a coordinating conjunction, they become coordinating clauses. So this is all about coordinating clause. You will see that there will be a coordinating conjunction joining them, and both will be conveying complete sense, both the parts. Now come to subordinate clauses. A subordinate clause has a finite verb with a subject. Again, all clauses have to have a finite verb and a subject. It is a prerequisite of all kinds of clauses. All kinds of clauses have to have a finite verb and a subject, but does not convey complete sense on its own. This is the difference. A principal clause conveys complete sense. The two coordinating clauses also on their own convey complete sense. But a subordinating clause, although it has a finite verb, although it has a subject, it does not convey complete sense on its own. It can thus never be a sentence in itself and make sense only when it is added to an appropriate principal clause. Therefore, we also call subordinate clauses as dependent clause. Okay, like we did in the first example, which was the girl who is wearing the red dress is an astronaut. Who is wearing the red dress was a subordinate clause which required a principal clause to complete its meaning, which required, like you see in this definition, it says, makes sense only when it is added to an appropriate principal clause. So in that sentence, the girl is an astronaut was the principal clause, and therefore the subordinating clause was who is wearing the red dress, and we added it to an appropriate principal clause. Then only it made sense. Otherwise, subordinate clauses do not convey complete sense and they cannot stand as a sentence on its own. Okay, and therefore they are called dependent clauses. These are the three main kinds of clauses. Now, let us see an example of subordinating clause. I enjoy watching movies which are based on science fiction. So the first sentence, which was an independent clause, said, I enjoy watching movies. The second sentence, which was a coordinating clause, said, I enjoy watching movies, but my sister likes shopping. Now here is an example of a subordinate clause. I enjoy watching movies which are based on science fiction. Now let us divide this sentence into parts. I enjoy watching movies is one part. It is making complete sense. It is standing on its own as a sentence. I is the subject, enjoy watching is the verb, and we have complete sense. This part of the sentence is making complete sense on its own. It is standing alone as a sentence, and therefore it is an independent clause or the principal clause. Now let us see the other remaining part of this sentence. The remaining part of this sentence says which are based on science fiction. So which are based on science fiction has a subject, which is which, are based is the verb, but it does not convey a complete thought. It does not make complete sense on its own. And it is not capable of standing alone as a sentence. Therefore, this kind of sentence is this kind of group of words. It is a group of words, is a subordinate clause, which requires a principal clause or a main clause to complete its meaning. And in this case, the principal clause is I enjoy watching movies. Then we are adding this subordinate clause to this main clause, which is I enjoy watching movies, to make a complete sense. I enjoy watching movies which are based on science fiction. So I hope the three kinds of clauses are clear. Now we will go to the kinds of subordinate clauses, which are very important. Now, principal clause, understood. Coordinate clause, it makes complete sense. It has two parts. It is joined by a coordinating conjunction. Subordinate clause has a subject and a verb. It does not make complete sense and it cannot stand alone as a sentence. And subordinate clauses are divided into three types. They are further divided into three types: noun clause, adjective clause, and adverb clause. Now let us see what is one by one. We'll go and see the noun clause first. A noun clause is a subordinate clause. You know that it is a kind of subordinate clause which functions as a noun in a sentence. It means that it performs the function of a noun in a sentence. How do you know that that something is acting as a noun in a sentence? We know when something is acting as a noun in a sentence, it is either acting as a subject, or it acts as an object in that sentence. It can be an object, subject of a verb, or it can be a direct object of a verb, or it can be an object of a preposition. We'll see all the cases now. Okay, let us see first, understand what is a noun clause. I know that the apples from the orchards of Kashmir are juicy. So let us review this sentence. I know that the apples from the orchards of Kashmir are juicy. I know. Divide the sentence. I know. I know it has a subject I. It has a verb know. And I know is conveying complete sense, and it can stand alone. It is a principal clause or an independent clause in this sentence. I know. Now that the apples from the orchards of Kashmir are juicy. Let us look at this part. So in this part, apples is the subject, are is the verb. And that the apples from the orchard of Kashmir are juicy is conveying some sense, although not complete sense. And it is not able to stand alone as a sentence. But it fulfills the other two conditions. It has a subject, it has a verb. Therefore, it is a dependent clause or a subordinate clause. In this sentence, it is a dependent clause or a subordinate clause. And now we'll see how is it performing the function of a noun. When you are defining a noun, you ask the question what? I know. I know what? I know that the apples from the orchards of Kashmir are juicy. Therefore, this is acting as a noun. When you ask the question, what do you know? I know that the apples from the orchards of Kashmir are juicy. This is acting as the object of the verb know, and it is acting as a noun. Therefore, it is a noun clause. So let us see some more examples. That it would rain seems likely. Now, seems is the verb here. What is the noun here? Now, again, we will ask the question, what? What seems likely? That it would rain. What seems likely? The question, the answer to this question would be that it would rain seems likely. So now here you can see when we ask the question what, the answer is that it would rain. That means this is acting as the subject in this sentence. This noun clause is acting as a subject of the sentence. Okay. Therefore, it is also a noun clause, because when we ask the question to the verb, the answer is always the subject of the sentence. And in this case, the subject is the noun clause. Let us look at another sentence. Everybody knows that he is an honest man. Everybody knows what? What does everybody know? Everybody knows that he is an honest man. So that he is an honest man, that the apples from Kashmir are juicy, you can see that this one thing you can see that we are beginning our noun clause with that. Mostly in these sentences, we have begun our noun clause with the word that, with the conjunction that. So that when we ask the question of the verb, what does everybody know? We get the answer that he is an honest man. So that he is an honest man is the clause, and it is the noun clause because it is answering the question we asked the verb, and it is acting as an object of the verb knows. So a noun clause can act as a subject. In this case, it is acting as a subject. That it would rain is the subject of the sentence. That he is an honest man in this case is the object of the verb knows, but it is a noun clause. Again, let us see another example. Pay careful attention to how I'm going to perform the surgery. So here, pay careful attention, and to is a preposition if you see here. Okay. So how I'm going to perform the surgery is the clause here, which has a subject I, which has a verb am going. Now, does it convey a complete sense how I'm going to perform the surgery? No, it is not conveying a complete sense. Therefore, it cannot stand alone as a sentence, and therefore it is a subordinate or a dependent clause. And what kind of a subordinate clause? It is a noun clause, because it is acting as the object of the preposition here. I told you that a noun clause can act as a subject, it can act as an object of the verb, it can act as an object of the preposition also. The preposition in this case is to. And again, you will ask the question to identify a noun clause. You will ask the question, what? What should I pay careful attention to? To how I'm going to perform this surgery. Okay. Now, a noun clause. How will you identify a noun clause? A noun clause is generally introduced by conjunctions, whether, that, or if. Now, if you pay attention, you will realize that whether, if, and that are used when we are converting any direct speech to indirect speech. So mostly all reported speech sentences are noun clauses. Okay, because we begin an indirect speech with either that when it is a statement, assertive sentence, and when it is a question, we begin the reported speech with either whether or if. Okay, so a noun clause can be introduced or can begin with a conjunction like whether, that, or if. Let us see some examples. He said that he knew the new neighbors. So you see that it is an indirect speech sentence, and the noun clause, the subordinate clause, noun clause is beginning with the conjunction that. It is beginning with the conjunction that. Also, he asked me whether I knew the new neighbors. So whether is again, when you are asking a question, you have whether, use the conjunction whether. So whether, when you use whether, it means that this is the starting of the subordinate clause or the noun clause. Again, she asked me if I would like to have coffee. Okay, so if I would like to have coffee, again, this conjunction if is where the noun clause is beginning from. I is the subject, like is the verb. Here also I is the subject, new is the verb. Here also he is the subject, new is the verb. But it does not convey complete sense. All these clauses do not convey complete sense, and they are noun clauses. He said what? He asked me, what did he ask you? She asked me, what did she ask you? Okay, so these are all noun clauses and they can begin with conjunctions. Let us see, a noun clause can also begin with WH words. It can also begin with the question words. A noun clause can also begin with question words like why, when, what, where, who, and which. A noun clause can also begin with these words. Let us see how. For example, he asked me why the child was crying. So what did he ask you? Why the child was crying. So the child is the verb, the child is the subject, was crying is the verb, and we are beginning the noun clause with why. Okay, the question word why. So this is a noun clause because it is also answering the verb, what did he ask you? They decided which car they would buy. Again, the noun clause is beginning with which, the verb, WH word which. Car is the subject. They is the subject, would buy is the verb here, and the question we'll ask is what did they decide? They decided which car they would buy. He asked me where I went last week. Okay, now this is also another WH word, where I went last week. I is the subject, went is the verb, and what did he ask you? Where I went last week. So this is a noun clause. She wanted to know when the doctor would come. What did she want to know? When the doctor would come. And the noun clause is beginning with the question word when. The doctor is the subject. Come, would come is the verb here. A noun clause can also begin with pronouns. It can begin with conjunctions, that, whether, and if. It can begin with the WH words. A noun clause can also begin with pronouns. Whatever, whoever, that, which, these pronouns they can begin with. For example, my dog eats whatever food I give him. What does my dog eat? Whatever food I give him. Okay. The assistant showed us where we should leave our bags. What did the assistant show us? What did he show us? Where we should leave our bags. So these are the three kinds of parts of speech with which the noun clause can begin with a conjunction. Noun clause can begin with WH words. Noun clauses can also begin with pronouns like whatever, whoever. Okay. Now we'll move on to adjective clause. Now an adjective clause, as the name suggests, an adjective is a word which describes a noun or a pronoun or another adverb. So adjective clause or a relative clause. An adjective clause is also called a relative clause, is a subordinate clause which performs the functions of an adjective to a noun. That means it is describing the noun or a pronoun in the sentence. It performs the function of describing the noun or a pronoun in a sentence. Like I told you in the very first sentence example, the girl who is wearing the red dress. So the clause who is wearing the red dress was describing the girl. Therefore, it was an adjective clause. The noun being described by the adjective clause is called its antecedent. It is very important. The noun which the adjective clause is describing is called an antecedent. So in the first sentence, the girl who is wearing the red dress, girl was the antecedent. The girl was the antecedent because it was the noun which the adjective clause was describing. Let us look at some examples again. Mary's sister has blue eyes. So in this sentence, the word blue is an adjective which is describing the eyes. Okay, which is describing Mary's sister's eyes. Blue is an adjective which is describing how are Mary's sister's eyes. So it is a describing word. It is an adjective. We can also write this sentence as Mary's sister has eyes which are blue. So which are blue becomes a clause. Okay. But it is also describing, the meaning is the same. It is describing the eyes of Mary's sister, which are blue. So this is a clause. Why? Because it has a subject, which it has a verb are. It does not make complete sense. It is a subordinate clause. We already know adjective clauses are subordinate clauses. We are studying the kinds of subordinate clauses, and subordinate clauses, as you know, they don't make complete sense and they cannot stand alone in a sentence. So which are blue is has a subject, it has a verb. It is a dependent clause because it does not convey complete sense. It cannot stand in a sentence alone. It is acting as an adjective. Why? Because we know it is describing the eyes of Mary's sister. Therefore, it is an adjective clause. So noun clause we know already. I have told you how to identify a noun clause by asking the question of the verb, and how the noun clause acts as a subject, acts as an object to the verb, acts as an object to the preposition. But an adjective clause is does the same work as an adjective does. The adjective is describing the eyes, the adjective blue, and which are blue is also describing Mary's sister's eyes. The only difference is that this is a group of words, this is a single word, this is a group of words which has a subject, which has a verb, which is a dependent, which makes some sense but not complete sense, and therefore it is acting as an adjective. Although it is not a single word, it is a group of words which makes it an adjective clause. Now let us see another example. Vikas is the chef who taught me how to cook. So who taught me? Vikas is the chef. Okay, I can also say Vikas is a chef. So it will make complete sense. This will become an independent clause. This is a clause in this sentence. And who taught me how to cook is another clause in this sentence. So who taught me how to cook has the subject who, has the verb taught, It is not conveying complete sense. It cannot stand as a sentence. And it is doing the work of describing the chef Vikas. You can see that when a clause, an adjective clause, immediately before the adjective clause is the antecedent or the noun which it is describing. Okay, so immediately before an adjective clause, you will find the noun which it is describing, and this noun is called the antecedent. So who taught me how to cook is describing the chef. So it is an adjective clause, and the chef is the noun which is called the antecedent. This is the dog whose leg is broken. Again, whose leg is broken is describing the dog. So the dog is the antecedent in this sentence, and whose leg is broken is the adjective clause which is describing the dog. So whose is the verb, leg is the verb, subject here, is broken is the verb here, and it is having incomplete sense. It cannot stand alone as a sentence. It needs a principal clause to complete its meaning. So it is definitely a subordinate clause. But what kind of subordinate clause? It is an adjective clause because it is describing the dog whose leg is broken. It is further describing this noun dog, that it's talking about that particular dog whose leg is broken. Now, an adjective clause is a dependent clause. Please see carefully. It is a dependent clause. It is a subordinate clause. We know that modifies a noun, pronoun, just like an adjective. Like, it means that it is performing the function of an adjective in a sentence. An adjective clause is introduced either by a relative pronoun, like that, who, whom, whose, which, or it can be introduced by a relative adverb, where and when. So I've already told you a noun clause begins with the conjunction that, if, or whether, with pronouns whatever, whoever, with the WH words. So this is how you will identify a noun clause. And an adjective clause is introduced by relative pronouns like that, who, whom, whose, which, and relative adverbs, where, when. So an adjective clause always begins with a relative pronoun or a relative adverb. This relative clause is either the subject or the object of the clause. It can also be the subject or the object of the clause. The antecedent of an adjective clause should always occur just before the clause. I told you the noun or the antecedent the clause is describing will always be just before the clause begins. So you can identify that this is the antecedent, and therefore it is describing this antecedent, and it is an adjective clause. So here I will not teach the adverb clause today. We will do the adverb clause tomorrow. You will just go and absorb what I have taught, the noun clauses and the adjective clauses, and try out the exercises to see whether you are understanding the noun clause and the adjective clause. Now let us do a simple exercise. Since I have not taught you adverb clause, I'm not going to tell you to identify which clauses are these. I'm only going to ask you to identify what we have done today. Okay, identify the adjective clauses in the following sentences. The ship that caused the oil spill belonged to a big company. Now, who will identify the adjective clause in this? Tulika?
Ma'am, the adjective clause is that caused the oil spill.
Very good. So, see, the main clause in this sentence would be the ship belonged to a big company. And the adjective clause which is describing the ship is the antecedent here, that caused the oil spill, is the adjective clause in this sentence, which is further describing the ship, that this is the ship that caused the oil spill, describing the ship. Now next sentence, winter is the time when we go for a picnic. Iram ma'am, you can pick someone. Winter is the time when we go for a picnic. What is the adjective? Alankrita.
Picnic.
Yes, Alankrita, we couldn't hear you.
Ma'am, when we go for a picnic.
Yes. So when we go for a picnic is the adjective clause in this sentence, which is describing the time. When do we go for a picnic? When winter. Okay. This is the school where I have studied since nursery.
Anjali Yadav.
Where I have studied since nursery.
Very good. So school is the antecedent which is being described by the adjective clause where I have studied since nursery. The girl who was injured is in the hospital now.
Geshna.
Who was injured?
Very good. So the girl is in the hospital now is the main clause. Who was injured is the adjective or subordinate clause in this sentence. It is describing the antecedent, the girl. These are the people whom we met during our vacation.
Arna.
Ma'am, whom we met during our vacation.
Very good. So whom we met is the adjective clause. These are the people whom we met during our vacation. It is describing the people here. Let us go to the next set of questions. Identify the noun clauses in these sentences. I fear that I will fail.
Ananya Yadav.
Ma'am, I fear that I will fail.
Which is the noun clause?
That I will fail.
Yes, because it is beginning. I told you it will begin with the conjunction that. Okay. Another thing you will notice is I fear can be an independent sentence. That I will fail. I is the subject. Will fail is the verb here. Okay. And that I will fail is a subordinate clause. And if I ask the question, I fear what? I fear that I will.
I fear that I will fail.
This is a noun clause. Next, whoever thought of this idea is a genius.
Vaibhavi.
Of this idea is a genius.
What? No, wrong. You remember what did I say? How do these noun clauses begin? If you remember,
Can I?
Ma'am. Ma'am,
only ma'am will tell. Answer.
Prateek Singh.
This, ma'am.
Prateek, answer.
Ma'am, whoever thought of this idea?
Yes. Whoever thought of this idea is a genius. Whoever thought of this idea is the noun clause, because I told you that a noun clause begins with a pronoun. It can begin with the pronoun whoever. And this is acting as a subject. This noun clause is acting as the subject of this sentence. Who is a genius or what is a genius? Whoever thought of this idea is a genius. She asked if I could help her.
Satyam.
If I could help her.
Yes, if I could help her. She asked what? She asked if I could help her. I wondered what he was doing there.
Mehvish. Mehvish Fatima.
Mehvish.
What he was doing there.
Yes, it is beginning with the question WH word. What? The noun clause. I wondered what? I wondered what he was doing there. Last one. I don't know what he wants.
Adiba Bas.
Ma'am, what he wants.
Yes, very good. I don't know what. I don't know what he wants. This is also beginning with the WH word. What? He is the subject. Wants is the verb. So what he wants is a subordinate clause. And since it is answering the question, I ask the verb, what do you not know? I don't know what he wants. And also it is acting as an object to the verb know. This noun clause, what he wants, is acting as an object of the verb know. So a noun clause can act as the subject of a verb. It can act as an object of the verb. It can also act as an object of the preposition. So this is all that we will do till today, and you all will go and revise what we have learned today. The noun clause and the adjective clause portion, you have to revise today. Okay? We will continue with the adverb clauses tomorrow, day after.